So I've started sharing the screen, and I think everybody's pretty familiar with Zoom by now, but during a shared screen, you can choose whether you want to see just the speaker or just a little bit of the participants, or you can do the gallery mode next to the what's being shown. And then there's a vertical bar between the shared screen and the people. And if you want the people, more people to show, you can slide that bar left or right to show more or few people or fewer people, or make the image bigger or smaller. It's being shared. So I just want to make sure everybody knows about that. Anyway, it looks like we have enough people to get started here. So I'm Roger Rayle. I'm chair of CARD and chair of Site Residence for Safe Water, and I'm into my 29th year as a citizen volunteer, watching over the Gelman 1,4-dioxane contamination. So welcome everyone to the May CARD meeting. Beth, do you want to take us into item, oh, by the way, this is being recorded, just so you're aware, as it says there in the agenda. If there's anything that you really don't want it to say out loud, don't say out, or we can turn off the video temporarily and turn it back on. But generally, the more information that people have, the better. So I'll leave it at that. And then Beth is going to go over the minutes approval for the board members vote, and then Jack's going to take over the running of the meeting. And anybody that's new, looking on quickly on the screen, I don't really see anybody that's new, but if there is somebody jumps in, we want to make sure that you have a chance to introduce yourself. And when you first start speaking, in case there is, you might want to reiterate who you are and what your involvement is with the CARD group. So from that introduction, I'll turn it over to Beth for the vote on the minutes from the last meeting.
Thanks. Thanks, Roger. And yes, if I don't have you on my email list already, you could put your email just to me in the chat, or Joel, I can get yours though from Katie tomorrow. And anyway, the next item is the approval of the April minutes. And do I have a motion to approve them?
So moved.
And supported?
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The minutes are approved.
Thanks, Beth. Good job.
Thank you.
So I guess I'll take over at this point. My name is Jack Eaton. I'm the executive director of CARD, former member of City Council, and I have the pleasure of chairing these meetings so that we kind of stay on course. We're going to start with item number 3, old business. So we have it noted as the removal of the confidentiality agreement, but it's really turned into a request from the state to Gelman to provide us with the information that, that they've been using the confidentiality agreement as a shield from providing. Dan, do you have an update on that?
First, I'm Dan Hamel. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the EGLE project manager for the Gelman site, the day-to-day project manager. And I come to these meetings and give the updates. We have a EGLE team that helps, that oversees the Gelman site, but I'm the day-to-day project manager. So the person you would contact if you have questions first to answer any of those questions. But I don't have any new information in the sense of the change in the confidentiality agreement or the request for information. I do want to kind of what is on the agenda. The statement of EGLE has backed down or on asking or enforcing Gelman. We haven't backed down. What has happened is we've sent a request for information and a violation notice in December and early part of in January, I believe, or February was the last letter. And we, as far as following up, normally what would happen if those requests weren't followed through with by the liable party, the next step would be to bring an action in the circuit court under Part 201, the environmental law in Michigan, the Part 201, Section 2117, to compel the compliance with the information request. But in this particular case, the Michigan court rules have identified that there has been an appeal to them for the Gelman site, and so the rules bars the court that has identified or issued an order in this case to from amending its orders after a leave of appeal was granted. A leave of appeal was granted. Because of this, the court rule, EGLE is not going to pursue action in court at this time because we're likely not going to be until that Court of Appeal rules, not going to be successful in that. So, but it's just at this time, we will see where that goes. The next meeting is the CARD quarterly meeting. And so our AG representative, Brian Nagel, will be here. And if people have, he can answer more specific questions on the order, on the court rules and that type of thing. But we have not backed down. We have just decided to postpone our any additional work on the request for information until after the appeals has been reconciled.
So as a clarifying question, if it weren't for the pending appeal, an action to enforce your request for information would be timely now.
Yes, I mean, that's typically what is done.
Okay.
But because of that other issue, it's just have been advised that, these rules do identify that changing an order during appeal process, is not likely, can't be done, or is not allowed under the rules.
So independent of the court's June 2021 order, EGLE has the right to seek this kind of information, don't they?
Yes, and that's if someone, yes, we do. And that's the section under Part 201, Section 201-17. If you want to go in there and read that, does allow EGLE to request information from parties. So
I'll be interested to hear what the Attorney General's office has to say about this being completely an independent source of authority to seek this information, and yet it's somehow barred by that order. I don't expect you to understand the law that you're being asked to apply. So I appreciate your candor on this. Let's move on to item 3B.
Okay.
Is Evan Pratt here? Alrighty. I don't think Dan is here either. Does anyone have anything to say about the MS4 violation?
I have some question, or I have some information, but first off, I'm a little confused on Carter's asked for the data that EGLE and the Washtenaw County Water Resources Commissioner used to determine this most recent decision. I'm a little confused on what you're referring to as the data or information there.
I think we're under the impression that the state has taken the position consistent with the position asserted by the polluter that the MS4 violation is somehow encompassed in the June 2021 order, and thus it's not something that can separately be pursued. Is that your take on it? Has the Attorney General?
No, that take, I think, is incorrect. What has happened is there was in 2021 in the fall, we were working, or Evan Pratt as the permit holder under that program was pursuing with EGLE the MS4 issues violation and the work that would be needed to reconcile that under the Part 31 and that program, the MS4 program. And what happened was there was a work plan submitted. It was reviewed by Evan, by EGLE, and sent back to Gelman, and with we requested them, or Evan requested them to make the modifications and resubmit a work plan, that work plan. What occurred was after in January or February, I believe it was February, Gelman submitted a work plan, but not, they submitted the work plan as a GSI work plan, not a work plan to evaluate the MS4 issues that were identified for the Allen Creek drain area. They submitted that as a GSI work plan to EGLE, to RRD in Jackson, to EGLE. And so we got that work plan and started basically reviewing that work plan as strictly a GSI work plan as a GSI issue. And Gelman then identified this work plan, to Evan Pratt. They identified that this work plan is what he requested, is their response to a request for a revised work plan. So what we've been doing basically at this point is reviewing that work plan under the GSI exposure pathway evaluation of work plans that come into us like that as a GSI groundwater surface water interface, for those of you that don't know the acronym, groundwater surface water interface work plan. So we have not identified as of this point that it is strictly a GSI issue, and if you fulfill the GSI issue, you will fulfill any MS4 requirements. We are completing our evaluation of that work plan under the GSI, and we'll do a response, basically a response back to Gelman, and that response will will identify that there may maybe MS4 obligations may still exist for them. So I think the message that you said, Jack, is incorrect. We have not made a decision, even though there's been talk and about how the two rules or laws come together, and we have not made a decision on that. And but we will be giving them a response related to the GSI work plan they gave us, and but the MS4 issue is not has not is not dead. There's still be an evaluation of that.
So I have a few hands up, but before I go to them, I'm going to ask you just one other question. I recognize there's attorney-client issues, but can you tell us whether you have received any advice from the Attorney General's office on the interplay between the MS4 violation and the court order?
Only an overview of what the two laws and regulations, what they say, the language. I wouldn't say there has been a recommendation, but that this has to be evaluated because of how the language is that way. So that's why we're going down the GSI pathway and identified and review and give a response under the GSI path, and then we'll revisit or reevaluate the MS4.
Thank you so much. Go ahead, Vince.
Thanks. I just want to follow up on an issue we brought up last meeting. City Council has passed a resolution in January 2021 that stipulates that the City of Ann Arbor, and I thank Kathy Griswold for working on that. The City of Ann Arbor has sent a notice of violation to Gelman. Once again, they did this years ago and they're doing it again for the infiltration of 1,4-dioxane into the Allen's Creek drain. The drain office in years past, when Janice Bobrin was in charge, and was called the drain office, also at that time when she was in office, notified Gelman that they were not allowed to use either the storm drain or the sanitary sewer drain for a conduit to the Huron River. We currently have that. I think it's a danger to the neighborhoods, to the community, with potential infiltration into their basements as it's flowing through West Park. We know near the surface in the groundwater. It also affects property values. And I think unless some of the lawyers here today can, or Dan Hamel can indicate that the council and the drain office have no standing in how Gelman uses our facilities. And if that is the case, that is a very dangerous precedent for us to allow to go forward, that these polluters can just use facilities of the community to their benefit and to our detrimental effect. Thanks.
And thank you. Go ahead and lower your hand. Go ahead, Beth.
Yeah, according to
I
the
would
minutes.
like to have Dan Hamel respond to that, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Succinctly state your question.
Does the resolution passed by City Council and the comment and resolution from the drain office have any bearing on what Gelman would be allowed to do with the Allen's Creek drain or the storm or the sewer line in using that as a conduit to the Huron River?
I mean, Vince, I can't comment on specifics. I can only comment that.
Well, we know we have this in the drain. It's in the drain at 9.
Right, EGLE will regulate to the state law that we regulate to. That's such a hard question. I can't.
Well, okay, so the city and the county have no standing, basically.
The city and county have local jurisdiction standing, I would think, but I can't comment on a legal question like that. I will say that EGLE will regulate to the state law.
Yeah, we would like you to contact your legal team and make a determination if what Gelman is doing is actually legal, given the fact that the county and the city have both said there's a prohibition of using this facilities as a conduit to the Huron River. At the highest number we had recently was 49 part per billion. That's a pretty high number in my estimation. And it's in the surface groundwater, near surface groundwater. It's in the drain. And I think it's a major problem for the west side of Ann Arbor.
Well, Vince, as I said, Brian, I will bring what you've stated up, but Brian, it's next month is a quarterly meeting and there'll be more representatives.
Well, you said at the last meeting that you would help us.
That's what I was
with
going
that.
to say.
Okay, go ahead, Beth. Make your comment. Go ahead.
I'm going to read from the minutes of last month's meeting. Was that, as you asked, you acted like this just came out of the blue.
Right.
We asked for you to check with the AG's office and try to get the data related to this latest decision of it being a GSI issue versus an MS4 issue. That we wanted to just see what brought you guys to that decision. Go ahead. I'm sorry. We also asked you for data, all the appeals documents, which that's coming later, but I never formally got an email to you, but you said, I'll ask. So that's what that was coming from. And then if we go back to the back down part, I don't know what other words would be better than back down. on asking Gelman, you're basically choosing to not ask them or not and try to enforce it at this time. So, I mean, I can change that from back down, but I don't know what other word would be better.
I think it's safe to say that EGLE has postponed making a decision on that.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
And
Can I move
as
on?
far as the data, what, you know, as far as the data, what has changed it to a GSI evaluation at least was the receipt of a GSI work plan from Gelman and request for a GS, you know, that it be reviewed as a GSI, Part 201 GSI work plan. So that is what changed it right now. So we're going through that process, but we have not identified that it is changed. So the MS4 is not still have some issues. What we are doing is going to evaluate the GSI work plan, the Part 201 issue, and then evaluate how the two mesh together, and whether and identify any outstanding MS4 issues. Again, that the MS4 is, you know, brings in Evan and the Water Resources Division related to the MS4. It's not that we've said, hey, it's been switched. It's just we got this. We're going to go through this process and then identify how these two programs mesh together.
Just want to follow up. In the past,
I think that's a very important point, is that the MS4 permit belongs to the county Water Resources Commissioner, and the independent pursuit of that MS4 violation belongs to the county, not necessarily EGLE. And so EGLE can entertain a GSI work plan independent of what the county should be doing to enforce their rights under that permit. And so I want to make sure that we don't beat up on Dan about things that other people are not doing.
I just want to make one more point, follow-up point, that when Janice Bobrin forbid Gelman from using the drain, they couldn't use it. That was hard and fast. How has that changed? I don't understand.
But that's the point I'm making, Vince, is that it's not EGLE's responsibility to enforce the Water Resources Commissioner's decisions of that kind. And we have to seek local action on that. It's not going to be Dan. I'm going to move on to Michael now. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, this is related. I've forgotten exactly what document, but I think it was the cover letter for this submission of this plan was signed up on, and it was stated that essentially the interveners agreed with this position that MS4 and the Part 21 plan were all the same thing. Can we get any feedback from city or county reps here about whether in fact that has been that the decision apparently being represented by their attorneys is in fact their decision? Thanks. That's all.
Kathy Griswold or Kathy Knoll, do you have anything to add to that?
No, not at this time.
Okay.
How about from the county?
Kristen? Anyone?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Can I just say that there's been very little discussion and no closed session. We have a new city attorney. We have a new person assigned to Gelman, and a very steep learning curve.
Thank you, Kathy. Anything more, Mike?
No, that was it. Like some preliminary conversations I had, was not at all clear that this was the position of the intervener. So I'm just trying to clarify it. Is it or is it not? And I guess the answer is we don't know.
Yep. Okay. Put your hand down, and I'm going to call on Rita.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. It's just that the problem is that for me was that letter that was sent to Evan Pratt from Zalzmer on their letterhead, consultant for PLS, in which they basically set certain statements in there that we challenged 2 months ago when we first discussed this letter about, that PLS was allowed to use the storm drain and could only be regulated for its use of the storm drain under the GSI pathway of the state law. And to me, that's the issue, is whether there, and I'm not beating up on Dan Hamel. I am just simply stating that I think this is the frustration that's going on here, that this is an old conversation and that there's no resolution to it. Does the county, through the Water Resources Office, or the city through their role in maintaining the storm drains, have any right to how that drain system is used? And do they incur any liability for its use to convey pollution to surface water that's used as a drinking water source by other localities? Anyway, that's all. But I think that's the problem here. Thank you.
Yep, I agree. Put your hand down and I'll call on Glenn.
My experience is that both regulations, Part 201 for the GSI and Part 31 for the MS4 permit, apply, and they would have to comply with both regulations. Is that not correct, Dan?
Well, that's the question. There is language in both of them that meshes them together, but not, not as clear as what people would like. So yes, under both programs there are requirements. So that's what's happening right now, is we're trying to evaluate and come up with a decision how those two programs mesh together in the state of Michigan. And this is one of the first projects, major projects, where that issue has come up, or those two have come up in a very serious way with contamination. So that decision, like I said, has not been made that, hey, yes, this program trumps that program, or this one, if you do it, then you fulfill the other one. So that decision is still being made, still being evaluated and made, because it is one of the first times that this has come up, and we want to make sure that we have a decision that can be applied across the state, because it is a state.
This can't possibly be the first time that contaminated groundwater is entering an MS4 permitted sewer system. And it's not an either or question. They got to comply with both.
Well, that's yes, and they have to comply with both, but both, like for example, Part 201 allows under the GSI allows a certain concentration to be in the sewer, and allows that as long as it below a certain criteria, and that criteria is 280 parts per billion. So where Part 31 identifies that Part 31 identifies that an MS4 violation is any concentration of a contaminant in the sewer. But to mess those two together, when you have groundwater surface water interface exposure route, and then the Part 31 MS4, that doesn't come up every day. So it isn't, like I said, this is one of the first times that I've heard that we're going to have to evaluate and come up with a decision that meshes those two together. And then you add another layer of the court rulings. that is regulating the Gelman site. So in there, that also identifies certain issues and certain allowances for groundwater entering the sewer. So
I submit the way to resolve that ambiguity, which is there, is have them comply with both.
I'm confused. 'Cause
I'm-
Dan, you said you were going to help us if the county and the city both had stated that the drain should not be used. You said that you would help us work that out. So I'm not sure this is working with
Well,
us.
to be fair to Dan, he has to rely on the legal advice he gets from the Attorney General's office. He's not a practicing lawyer. I think
But he could
almost
convey,
everybody in this
communicate to
room
us.
agrees with what Glenn outlined here. But we don't have the authority to enforce the county's drain permit. That person's not in this meeting. Let's hope that at the next meeting we'll have more participation and more answers. But I'm going to suggest we move on to James if Glenn is all done.
I'm done.
Put your hand down. Go ahead, James.
Thanks, Jack. Let me verify in terms of the discussion here and in terms of going later on the agenda that this whole process of the MS4 violation and whatever you're working with the GSI work plan, this is separate from the 2021 court order and the third consent judgment, correct? Because we're in a discussion of the State Attorney General's office. Is that correct? I'm asking Dan and Andrea and anybody else from EGLE who's on the call here.
Okay, I'm not sure I understand your question. Whether they are separate, the regulations under Part 201 and the Part 31 are separate from the fourth proposed fourth amended response activity order. Proposed fourth amended CJ response activity order from last June.
You're not bound, this process is not bound by that, correct?
Well, in there, in that
that's-
process, yes, it is that response activity order does incorporate the Allen Creek drain, the GSI issue. It is so it does incorporate that. So that's what I was saying. There's that extra layer under Part 201, the court order that has has a language in it that relates to interpretation and regulating the groundwater surface water interface exposure pathway. So yes, it does. That's what makes it even more complicated.
All right, so even though the violation was reported separate from all this in terms of the legal process, been draining on for years, this is now thrown in, is what you're
Yes.
saying then.
Yes.
It's unfortunate.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Before we move on, I just wanted to ask that make sure that we cover the tidbit that caught my ear when Kathy Griswold said there's a new person at the city to handle city issues, and I want to make sure that that's covered when we get down to item J under item 3. That's all.
Okay, or we could just tell you now.
Maybe Kathy has that as part of what she's going to say
All right.
under item J.
All right, I will wait patiently for that. I'm going to move on to item 3C, the city's update. Do you have anything to report, Patty?
Yes, so nothing on basement testing. We haven't done any of that. But on the Sentinel well program, we did put out a bid for contractors for the city that went out last month. Those bids are due, I believe, May 19th, somewhere in that order. The plan is to get a contractor on board for drilling by July. So a video was pulled together it's with the communications folks. I'm hoping it's going to hit the streets, if not today, maybe tomorrow. And once I see that, I'll share it with Beth so she can distribute it.
So will that bid identify the ideal locations for the Sentinel wells?
The video does, it wasn't in the bid.
Okay.
Yeah, so the locations, if you all remember the modeling that we had done that identified that area near Maple and Miller
Mhm.
intersection. So one point is located northeast and one point is located, I guess, to the southwest.
All right.
So near Sequoia Parkway, actually in the boulevard there, and then the other one is in Garden Homes Park.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Any questions or comments in response to, go ahead, Vince.
I'd just like to reiterate that I would, Vince Caruso at the board member of CARD and coordinating member of the Allen's Creek Watershed Group. I think we should have CARD involved in some of these decisions so that our knowledge, I would say, is probably better than pretty much anybody on this project. As to where
You
we
do
would
know
think-
that work was based on a model
Well, I think that
where
there's been
the plume
problems
could
in the past.
potentially be going.
I'm sorry. There's been problems in the past with city projects being inappropriate in wrong locations and were a waste of money. And I would like to avoid that in the future. And you should, the city should, and the county should come to CARD and get advice from us. I think that'd be very beneficial for the whole process. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment on?
Jack, can I just reiterate that the work was based on a model that was peer reviewed. The decisions for those were based on the geology, the hydrogeology, and the model. I'm not sure that getting advice from CARD on the model and how to interpret the model would have been beneficial.
Well, we do know where there's
I appreciate
near
that, Vince.
surface water. And
I appreciate
testing too far up the hill isn't beneficial.
I'm
And
not
that's an
testing up
issue.
it.
Well,
We're
that's
talking about
previous.
installation of the Sentinel wells. We're protecting Barton Pond.
Okay. Thank you. So that was points 3C and 3D on the agenda. I don't see any further hands. I do want to acknowledge the presence of a gentleman who just joined, I think, James Johnson Jr., who's running for, I think, the State House, has joined us. I really appreciate when candidates join us and try to come up to speed on the issues that face us. Welcome, James. I'm going to move on to 3E, the Superfund site designation. Does the Dingell team have anything to report?
So I'm Katie. I'm from Congresswoman Dingell's office. Like I said earlier, we also have Joel, who is, as I transition out, I'm still in a part-time capacity, but Joel is taking over my role. So you guys will all get to know him. And if you want me, or I guess if you would like Joel to set up a meeting with you, I know he wants to get to know each and every one of you. So I guess that's update number 1. Set up a meeting with Joel, teach him everything you know. And I'm happy to be in on any of those meetings as well. But in terms of the Superfund site, I don't believe there's anyone from the EPA on this call. We are waiting for that update. Their anticipated month was going to be June. So our office hasn't, as far as I know, has not gotten any particular updates. I don't know if anyone else here has heard anything that I have not. But the hope is that we're going to hear something pretty soon. And it looks like Kathy might have something to add.
Go ahead, Kathy.
I was going to say that I check the EPA Gelman website regularly, and the most recent update was February. And in there they said, and EPA anticipates sampling to start in May. So I guess, Katie, do you believe that slipped to June?
So I think it will be happening this month. I'm not sure that it's started yet. And that's why I think that when we last heard from the EPA, they were going to join that June meeting and give us an update on how that sampling was going.
Oh, good. Okay. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, you're totally fine. That's what I last heard too, was that it was going to be happening and their update was going to come in June.
Oh, okay, thanks. And I really appreciate this website that's maintained by the EPA. I think it's very useful.
I agree.
Katie, maybe after this meeting, those who want to discuss with Joel and you for a few minutes, we can stay on and have a virtual quick meeting.
I think that would be really helpful. I don't know what Joel's up to after this, but I think that would be really nice.
You guys have a little time afterward?
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
That'd be excellent. Go ahead and put your hand down, Kathy. And we're going to move on to item F, the intervenor update. We had asked whether we could obtain copies of all of the briefs that have been filed in the Court of Appeals and the Michigan Supreme Court for the various appeals that the polluter has taken. I've gotten some of them. I'm not sure that I've gotten all of them. I'm pretty sure that I have not received the briefs filed by the Attorney General's office on behalf of EGLE. So can anybody help us here? All right.
Well, I can give you an update in the sense that we are compiling and they will be posted on our website because based upon some of the requests from the last meeting and the concern that they aren't available. Again, some of them are available on the city, different web pages, but we will have sometime in the near future have those compiled and put on the EGLE website. As far as the specific, I'm not quite sure I understand which ones, Jack, you think from the AGs you don't have, but there has been ongoing submittals in the court system. Are you talking about the ones just before the June 2021 order? Is that what you're thinking? Is that what you're referencing when you said you don't think you have?
Everything that I seek, it relates to the appeals out from that order from June. So there were two set of appeals. First, there was appeal by right.
Yep.
All of the parties filed stuff for that. And then that was the appeal by right was denied, and that's been taken to the Supreme Court. And so then all the parties have filed something with the Supreme Court.
Okay.
And then the second round of appeal was appeal by permission, which was eventually granted, and the parties have actually briefed the substance of that argument, although I don't think there's been an oral argument scheduled yet. All of the briefs of the parties have been received by the Court of Appeals. And certainly we can get those, but it costs like a per page charge.
Yep.
And the parties have them in probably a PDF form that would be easy to post. And I really appreciate your efforts to post those. Kathy, did you have something to say?
Yes, I just want to make sure everyone is aware of the legal document that was sent on behalf of the interveners on April 18th. And it read the court's June 1st, 2021 response activity order. So we're not using consent judgment anymore. But what I have to say is I spent my energy simply getting having the opportunity to review the letter that was being sent out on behalf of the interveners before it was sent by the lawyers. So, I mean, this is the most basic activity. Once again, I am striving to be able to see a document before our lawyers send it out on our behalf. And the other thing I'll say is we come to these card meetings and we are frustrated and we sort of beat up on each other sometimes. And what we have to remember is the political machine, whoever and whatever that is in the local area, they have little interest in this other than reaching the Barton Pond. And so it is extremely difficult to make any progress.
Well, we appreciate your efforts. Thank you very much. If there's no further comment on that, I'll move on to the Scioto Township update. Do you have anything to report, Kathy Knoll?
Yes, I have one thing to report. The third round of well testing with the 522 method inside was delayed because of the weather. So the well testing is supposed to be done end of this week or next week. So that's the only update that I have. Thank you.
Go ahead, James.
You're muted, James.
You're still muted.
Sorry about that, guys. And just for background, I'm James Demore. I am a vice chair of the state political committee for the Sierra Club. And I started as a local representative with the organization, but I stayed with it. My standard question to Kathy, as it is every month, I assume there's been no change in terms of the developer's petition so far. And you mentioned that he's trying to connect to city water. There's been no change in status at all.
Well, that's not correct. There's a slight change. So a group of 3 planning commissioners, including Jan Culbertson, the chair of the Planning Commission, myself, met with Larry Lemke and Keith Gadway to discuss the potential impacts of this development proposal. And Larry Lemke has suggested that the township engage him to assist with creating a groundwater model to assess the potential impact of a community well and the on-site community wastewater system. So all of that is being discussed. It's going to happen as far as I know. The developer is going to pay for that. Where it stands exactly right now, I don't know, but this is the plan at this time.
So there's no timetable established for when that's going to happen next.
I'm sure it's going to be set pretty soon, but I do not know when those dates are going to be. I mean, I don't know when this is going to start.
Sure. Thanks, Kathy. I appreciate it.
Okay.
And so the Knights of Columbus proposed development was actually the next item on the agenda, and I think we've covered that, unless someone else has a comment on that.
Sorry
James,
about that.
you still have your hand up, James.
I'm lowering it.
Thank you, sir.
Well, I
Any
do
further
have
comment on those 2 items?
I do have a comment on the KFC site and the fact that the silo is now considering hiring an outside consultant to do yet another model. I think before they do that, better look at the extensive work that EGLE has done in modeling that and showing that in that area, in that direction, the Rockworks model shows that there's not enough data to even complete the model that Rockworks has in that direction. Those are some of the areas where there's gaps in the modeling because there's not enough data. So as a township resident, I think it's important that that be considered before spending money to do something that's already been done that shows there's not enough data.
I do want to point out that the Rockworks model is not the type of model that I believe Dr. Lemke was talking about. The Rockworks model is a static model. Dr. Lemke is, I believe, talking about more of a interactive model where you put information in and you make predictions by changing data, changing inputs into the model. So it's not an exact, other than Roger, what you said, that there's some data lack in that area. It's not an exact model that Dr. Lemke was.
So
I think,
are you talking about
referencing.
the kind of model that would be used to create a provisional wellhead protection area?
Something along those lines, yes.
So
it
who
is.
who normally does that, the state or the township?
Well, the state does
Okay.
the provisional wellhead protection areas.
Yeah. So
but
why doesn't the state do a
specific
provisional wellhead protection area for that proposal? and save the township from having to.
Well, you're getting
Duplicate
outside
it.
my program. So the knowledge of whether the state would do something like that on a request for a developer is you'd have to go to the water resource. I think it's the drinking water. Group.
Maybe that division of EGLE can participate in next month's.
I can share a little bit more information from my notes. Larry said that he recommended a groundwater model. It would include a pump test.
Yep.
And it would include any other observation well data that was nearby. Then he said we would need quantitative information. We would look at how does the extraction affect water flow, and how does the wastewater on-site system potentially affect water flow.
Does Larry know about the really large wells that were used during the extension of lanes on I-94? Two large wells at the what is now the parking lot at Miller and M14.
I don't know if he knows that.
Because those wells were among the largest capacity wells used in Scioto Township. And I don't know how many years they were used, and I don't know what effect it had on the plume at that time, but that might be some good input to consider.
Good point.
Roger, maybe could you just do a quick email to me describing those wells, outlining important information, and I will forward it on to Larry.
Yeah, I mean, one of your consultants already has that.
It's never too late to remind them.
That's right.
All right. I see no further comment on that item, and so I'm going to move on to 3I, which is the Ann Arbor water and alternative sources issue. This is designated for Beth. Do you have anything to say, Beth?
I have not heard anything. Does anyone else have? Did we get a response from Brian Steglitz or Kathy? Anyone at City Council? No.
Nope. All righty. I'm going to move on to 3J, which is apparently CARD has asked that the city let us know whether or not they're receiving any well sampling data that isn't available elsewhere. Do you have anything to say on this, Kathy Griswold?
I am not aware of any, and I don't know if Patti McCall can comment on that.
I'm not sure exactly what you'd be asking for. Like, various places across the city that I work on, we end up doing 1,4-dioxane. Like at 415 West Washington, for instance.
I think it was that anywhere that you test for dioxane, if we could get the results, like occasionally, even quarterly, or wasn't that what you thought, Roger?
Yeah, this is at last meeting. We started to discuss this, but we ran out of time as usual. And it's ironic that we're getting information from other units, like SCIO's data is now in the Gelman database. But the sampling data from the City of Ann Arbor is not in the Gelman database. We're talking about sampling at the Northwest Supply Well.
Yeah, I don't have any information on that. That's not
somehow Gelman's getting it. Somehow Gelman has the well logs for the Northwest Supply Well, which, as far as I know, are not in the Gelman database.
I'd be happy to provide the information for the sites that I've tested, but again, I don't have any.
I know it's not just you. I think it's just a policy decision on the city to share the data they have about dioxane that they've developed with with everyone, with EGLE and anyone else that wants to do detailed analysis. You know, we need to have a total picture of where the dioxin is in our waters of the state. And the last time I looked, the city of Ann Arbor is part of the waters of the state. And
So
I'd like to have somebody at the city make a decision. Yes, we're going to routinely share that data with EGLE so they can put it into the database, all the dioxin data.
Who would have that data?
That's a good.
That's a good question.
I
Do you
mean-
have a new point person besides Patty that's a Gelman city person?
I don't think so. I mean, if Gelman has data, they should be sharing it with EGLE directly, I would think. So I'm just, I
No,
don't-
it's not Gelman's data that they collected.
oh, okay,
That's another story about what happened
okay.
after the 2006, when city tried to intervene
okay.
in the court case.
Is there anyone collecting data on behalf of the city other
course
than
there are.
Patti McCall?
Of course they are. The Northwest Supply Well, somebody in the city's collecting that data.
Oh, okay.
Well, and any if down at the, you know, that new Broadway DT&E site, if they test and find dioxin anywhere, I feel like it should go into the database for the dioxin, because
Right.
I mean,
they're
unless
going to be sampling at the dewatering if it's not already happened
Yeah.
for dioxin. We'd like to have that data included as well.
I don't know where it goes, like how we get the final one from Barton, you know, the intake, the Steer Farm, and the Barton one comes out in that quarterly. Where are all the other test sites too? That
So if I may suggest that we compile a list of what we think the city has that they're not sharing, so that we can make a formal request that they share it. I agree. Any data that's collected by the city or any of its agents should be shared with the county and EGLE and us. So, but just to wrap our head around this, we should actually have kind of an informal list of what we suspect they have.
It's two things. It's the Northwest Supply Well data and any dewatering data they have, the sampling of dioxin. It's not a very long
okay.
list.
So I'm
Well,
gonna-
there's probably others that we don't know about, so we can't put it on the list.
So I'm going to return to the formality of calling on people who've raised their hand and call on Rita. You're mute.
There is a city site, and I posted it to the chat last week, just at the very, very end of the meeting. I was trying to find it. I'll find it. I'll put it on the chat. But the city posts an Excel sheet where they put the values of their latest testing from the shallow water, the drains, the Montgomery well. So let me keep looking and I'll put it up, but it's hard to find.
Well,
So-
and it may not be in the full format that's needed to include.
No,
in the database.
it doesn't negate what you've been saying, Roger. It needs to be communicated to DEQ, and DEQ needs to integrate that information into their database. Absolutely. I'm not negating it. I'm just adding that for information for the group here. And I'll post it to the chat in a minute,
And I
whenever I
appreciate
find
that.
it.
I appreciate that observation, because if we can identify the stuff that they're already admitting they have, we can ask for more
Yeah.
complete information for those sites.
Yeah, it's just an Excel sheet. So
Yep.
I'll keep looking.
Go ahead, Kathy.
This is beyond my expertise, I think, but the good news is the Environmental Commission is forming a water quality something subcommittee. And I will suggest at the next Environmental Commission that this be one of the responsibilities of that subcommittee, because there will be experts and there will be people that are involved in these activities. So I think that may help the process.
Thank you so much. Patty.
Yeah, I just wanted, I just wanted to add that, you know, there's probably a lot of data that I have that I've collected or I've been consulted on for many of the sites in the city. So I probably have a more comprehensive set of data, but I'm happy to reach out and obtain other information. I'll see what I can get.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
If all of you can lower your hand, I'll call on Kristen.
Hi there, thanks. There wasn't a place for county health department updates and data sharing, so I thought I'd throw my hat in the ring here since it seems like this is as good a place as any.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I just wanted to let everyone know that we completed our first round of biannual sampling. So we collected about 21 samples in April. 20 were on Elizabeth, one was on the Dexter Ann Arbor at the Dexter Ann Arbor Road Daycare. This is the first time that EGLE reported down to the 0.5 part per billion level. So that was great to see. We had 5 detections, all in wells with previous detections. We got the results today. So we are in the process of getting those out to homeowners. Detections range from about 0.9 to 2.4 parts per billion. And then we will do our big sampling event in June with 165 samples due at that time. I think that's everything that I have to report on. Thanks.
Thank you.
Kristen. Where was the 2.4?
I believe it was, well, they were all on Elizabeth. So it would be on Elizabeth. I don't have the address in front of me.
Okay.
And we haven't let the homeowners know yet. So this is like hot off the presses.
Alrighty. So would you like to be, would you like a permanent spot on the update list here? Or would you just prefer that you offer an amendment to the agenda when you do have something to say?
Once upon a time, we used to have a space on the agenda. If you think that it's important, you know, we always share the results when we get them. For these, we get them about twice a year. There's certainly sometimes other places. So I guess it depends if you want to have us have a holding spot, if there's other items you want to hear from us on, or if you'd rather just have us jump in when we have something to say.
Or when Beth sends out the agenda, you can just say, this month I have something to say. And
yeah, and this time we didn't know we'd have the results until today.
Yeah. Okay.
That's Jenny used to let me know, like, if she needed to be on it, or Jenny would let me know. So
yeah, exactly.
Here, I appreciate you.
I'll keep it on there.
Okay.
Because a lot of these things are on there and we don't have updates, so I'll keep you on there.
Okay, thanks.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Kristen, were any of these numbers increases over prior testing that had been done at the same wells?
I'd have to take a look. I don't have that in front of me right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Vince.
So are these drinking water wells for homeowners?
Yep. So this is the, sorry, let me provide a little bit of context. I'm Kristen from the health department. These are drinking water wells that residents use in Scioto Township. We sample hundreds of wells each year for 1,4-dioxane. And this is the first set along Elizabeth Road, where I think Roger has in yellow on the map here is kind of zooming in. We've been testing these residents for, gosh, years now. And there's been a set number that have had ongoing detections.
Just a little bit more clarity. This is the program that Washtenaw County and EGLE does every year. The residential well sampling for the, related to the Gelman site. We sampling anywhere, each year from 120 to 180 residential wells around the plume. And Jenny and I figure out each year where the samples are going to be. Some have been every other year locations, but I enter this stuff into the database, and so it will be available on the database. But this is not a new program. This is the ongoing program that has been going on for years.
Was it 7.2 when the state would step in and deal with it? 7.2 part per billion.
What, I'm not sure I understand your question.
So at what point do they have intervention by the state when they're
well, the drinking water criteria for residential well would be 7.2. But under the response activity order, there are some actions that occur at 3 parts per billion related to the Gelman site where bottled water is supplied, and their evaluation of bringing municipal water to a location is started. So, but the normal, the 7.2 criteria is utilized for drinking water.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, we are on schedule. 60 minutes for number 3. That was pretty good. On to number 4. Go ahead, Dan. Give us the EGLE update.
Yeah, this is related to the response activity order, kind of a progress report that I could give related to that, the latest information. And I got this information with my contact with Gelman this week. So it's I'm just going to go through the different areas and the response activity order tasks that are identified in the response activity order. In the western area, the installation of monitoring wells, I have reported in the past, as of last month, that all the monitoring wells have been installed except at 2 locations. And if you have a map, they're locations I and J. These are private property locations that Gelman is attempting to get access on. So far, they have been unsuccessful with the private property owners. Really, it has been more of, they really have not, the owners have not been responsive, but Gelman has been trying to acquire those that property to finish up the installation that is identified and required in the response activity order. So that they will continue with that. They will, as soon as they get access, or if they continue not getting access, then they'll have to evaluate what are the next steps. And under Part 201, they can go to court and identify and request access, request court-ordered access. So they have always tried to do it, without going to court. But these are in the response activity order. These are required for Gelman to install. The locations have been identified as part of that order, general locations, so they will continue with that, and EGLE will help out. I believe what's going to occur is they're going to be again trying to make contact and identify that if the property owners have any questions, to go ahead and contact me as EGLE, as the regulator, so I can answer questions or discuss the response activity order with the particular property owners. The wells that have been installed, they are also the new wells they're sampling. You will see on the monthly sampling results, you'll see new wells, wells starting at MW 142 through 146. These new wells will start having data presented each month as Gelman samples them. Also in the western area, if you remember, we've talked about a GSI work plan for the western area. We talked earlier about a GSI work plan for the Allen Creek drain. This is west of Wagner Road, the western area. There's a GSI requirement in the response activity order. Gelman has started collecting data related to that evaluation and the work plan they presented to EGLE. They are waiting for some additional permits, wetland permits from EGLE. I believe they just got that issued by the Water Resources Division. They also have to get a Scioto Township wetlands permit. So when they have all those permits, they will do additional work in the western area at several locations on their property, and then around Third Sister Lake, and then along the unnamed tributary as basically downgrade, downflow of the outfall. So they have initiated those activities. And then the eastern area, what they have are applied for access in a lot of locations in the eastern area with the City of Ann Arbor. They're working with the city to get right-of-way access at locations. They do have all of the private property location access acquired that they would need. For example, in the Rose Well area, there's an extraction well that's required there or identified for there. They have the private property access, but they're waiting for the final review and approval from the City of Ann Arbor for right-of-way access. And both of those would be needed. And then they will install the well and install the infrastructure to hook it up to the piping system that will take it back across for treatment at the Gelman plant. As far as the other extraction well identified in the response activity order, the Park Lake well, the first activity is, as I've said before, is Gelman submitting a permit, an NPDES permit application, a request to discharge the treated groundwater to First Sister Lake. They have not submitted that permit as of today, but they have gathered or gathering the last little bit of water chemistry information that is required to be submitted with the permit. And I was told that they hope to have the permit submitted by the end of May. So that is, for those, just a refresher, that is the first activity that's needed, required under the response activity order to install the Park Lake extraction well. If the NPDES permit is submitted, it is reviewed. If it's approved, then the Park Lake well will be installed. If it's not approved, then the requirement to install the Park Lake well, Gelman is not required to install that extraction well. The monitoring well installations in the western area, again, they have installed, they are waiting for basically access for most of the locations. For the City of Ann Arbor right-of-way access, they're working with the city to get those. And as soon as that access is received, then they will start installation of basically what are called Sentinel wells, that Northern Prohibition Zone boundary, PZ boundary wells, locations A, B, C, if you have a map from the order. And then they have the down gradient locations or down gradient investigation locations of F, G, and H. Those are down near the West Park area. And then they have a location E, which is a PZ boundary well to the south near the Montgomery well. So they've acquired that PZ boundary well. They have that, that's a private property, and they have that access, but they're waiting for the other ones. So they will then start, once they start drilling and installing wells, as they did previously, they will go to each new location. And so they're waiting for that access. As soon as the city gives that, they will install these new wells.
Okay.
I've also identified, we talked previous about the GSI investigation or GSI work plan in the Allen Creek drain area. So you're up to date on where that stands, that we are evaluating that, and we'll give a response related to the GSI Part 201 issue. But again, how it meshes together with an MS4 was still being a final decision will still be evaluated, and the final decision will be made after the GSI is evaluated. I do have some information on the some work that is required on the property. There's in the response activity orders, there's Gelman property response activities. One of the activities is extraction wells on the Gelman property. And they have basically, there is one well, TW24, that was installed last year, and it has been plumbed into the extraction and treatment system. It is being pumped and being sampled. There's a new well that was just installed, what will be identified as TW25. It's the second of 3 phase 1 extraction wells that are required or identified in the response activity order. And that will be basically, I believe I will be start receiving data. They started sampling and hooking it up, and I will receive data in the April lab report. We'll have this data for the new TW25. The third extraction well that is identified in the response activity order, they have done some preliminary work, basically some borings to see where they would install that well. They did not get a real good area related to geologic material and to be able to install that extraction well. So they are going to be gathering some additional information in the area during their GSI work in the western area. And once they get that new information, they will finalize a location for the third extraction well and put that one in. So that, there's 2 out of the 3 wells have been installed and are working and extracting on the property of the new wells, new extraction wells. They have also, there's a phytoremediation response activity required in the response activity order. They basically, this phytoremediation will be done in the former pond 1 and 2 areas, and then also in the marshy area. And they have basically started the work in the former pond 1 and 2 areas. They're currently doing utility locating activities. They believe that they will start installation of the tree wells, basically wells that trees will be put in the week of May 22nd. So again, that is a requirement under the response activity order, so that they have started that activity. As far as the phytoremediation in the marshy area, they're waiting for the permits. It was issued, the EGLE permit just came, and the Scioto Township wetlands permit is, it will be, as soon as they get that activity, they can start the preliminary work in the marshy area related to phytoremediation. That phytoremediation requires, you have to plant the trees at times when the trees will survive dry weather like the summer. So although they'll get the former pond 1 and 2 areas, it is not likely that they'll be able to plant the other ones. They'll gather all the information they need kind of to design kind of what I'll call a pre-design, kind of design the phytoremediation in the marshy area. But they won't start the planning until after the summer season, because it's just, you plant trees and they won't survive, as everybody knows, even in their yard. If you dry weather, dry conditions, hot weather, a new tree will not survive. So, but they have started, they have started the work under the phytoremediation activities that's required in the response activity order. Then the last item that's required in that is a heated vapor extraction system in the burn pit area of the property, former burn pit area. Basically, they have bid specs out. They're in the contractor selection period, but they're doing other contractors that are doing the utility clearances because it's a heated vapor extraction system. They got to really make sure they know where the utilities are, and they may have to move some. They basically have planned to start next week, May 6th, to break up or remove the asphalt in that area, and then get the asphalt, dispose of the asphalt. And so they will do that next week. And then once they have the asphalt up, the following week, they're hoped to do some test pitting and to locate and clear utilities. And again, they may have to move some utilities because it is a heated vapor extraction system. So it's not just an air movement, there's heat there. So you got to make sure, for example, there's not a gas line, there's not something that could have a problem with heat. They hope to then install wells this summer in that area, the former burn pit area. Basically the SVE, heated soil vapor extraction wells this summer, July, August time frame. But again, that and the piping associated with that system. Again, this is all, again, if they have to move a lot of utilities, it may not start until later in the summer. So But those are the activities that are identified and required in a response activity order. So there's a couple of questions. Why don't we, before getting too far, I have a couple more things on, but Jack, you want to, Kathy, you have your hand, or Vince had his hands up first, I guess.
He
Vince,
did.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks
Vince.
so much. Thanks so much. So I just want to ask two issues. One is when they do drilling at the burn pit, are they going to drill to bedrock like we had asked? Any new wells go in that they should drill the bedrock?
No,
So we know what the high values are down at the bedrock area, which could be 2 billion part per million or per billion.
The heated vapor extraction system, they will not be drilling to bedrock. They have the information about where soil contamination, heated soil vapor extraction is related to remediation of soil, which is shallow in stuff, and basically remove the continuing source of soil contamination that's leaching down into groundwater. But that does not, this system does not, this design and this installation does not include drilling to bedrock in that area.
Well, the other issue I had was you had mentioned that Gelman has a pipe to go back to the Gelman site from the northwest part of the plume at the Sisters Lake, at the Park Lake area. They're not being required to put a pipe in. They're kind of holding the Sisters Lake hostage so that if they don't get a permit to contaminate Sisters Lake, they're not going to mitigate that site. I think that is just egregious. I don't understand, it's just because it's going to cost money. It's their pollution. They should be cleaning it up. And the EGLE should be pressuring them to.
This is being installed under a court order.
Yeah.
The court order implemented what had been negotiated as the the proposed fourth amended CJ, which was negotiated by EGLE, Gelman, and the interveners. It was a compromise package, if you want to say, and was rejected, as you have identified. It was rejected by the intervener stakeholders. And so the judge took that package and what is required and ordered Gelman to do that installation. So they are under a court order to do it, and that is how it was identified in that proposed fourth amended CJ. So changing that right now is not an option without going back to court. And as far as I know, and I'm really talking outside of, I'm not the legal side. It's a court order
by the way,
that Gelman is required to do. So that's where we are right now. So changing that, I don't know, that would have to be some questions on the legal side.
And I just wanted to reiterate, this is not a consent judgment. We've talked about that, the card group, many times over.
Well, I'm trying to, I refer to it as a response activity order, but if you read it, it identifies that response activity orders basically requires Gelman to implement the proposed fourth amended CJ. So that's what the judge used to say, okay, implement this. It's an order, and I'm not trying to call it a consent judgment. It's an order to implement basically the draft or the proposed fourth amended CJ, the activities identified there. Kathy.
Okay. Is EGLE doing periodic site visits? I mean, how will you ensure that Gelman is complying with the court order?
Well,
yes. I'm concerned that it might be just self-reporting on the part of Gelman.
Well, I mean, that's a valid concern. Have we been out there every day that they've been doing work? No.
It's not what I asked, Dan.
We are planning to do spot checks. to visit the site when these activities are going on. I would prefer to do some of the more important activities, utility clearances and those types of things. No, but when they get into where they're installing, for example, these additional monitoring wells in the eastern area, definitely we'll be out and looking at key locations. And we did during last fall. There was site visits related to those wells that were installed. In addition, for the eastern area monitoring wells, we have, once they do the vertical profiling, we have a conference call, if you want to say, with Gelman, EGLE does, and we go over what depths to set monitoring wells, what they are proposing, and then what we would like to see as for the vertical, for the different monitoring wells. But we are planning to do site visits during these activities.
Okay, thank you.
Kathy?
Yes, this isn't really a question. It's more of an update regarding my discussion with the new lawyers working on city staff. And that is that the fourth amended CJ was strongly supported by our lawyers. Our fourth amended CJ was publicly endorsed by our mayor. It was not supported by a majority on council. The community was very vocal and very concerned about dumping into the First Sister Lake. However, now we're in a position where we have a court order or response activity order, whatever you want to call it, that may require this. And I just want to, for the record, state that the process that got us here was, in my opinion, hijacked by the intervener's lawyers, and they interpreted what Judge Connor stated on June 1st. And Dan, this is nothing negative about you, but I have some real concerns that the public's voice was ignored once again, and that if we get to the point where we are close to any type of discharge into First Sister Lake, I expect a major on the ground protest, similar to what we had over on the east side of town when mature trees were cut down, and it will probably be even more. I mean, people feel very, very strongly that the public wasn't heard in this case, and we shouldn't be dumping into First Sister Lake. So I know you're just doing your job right now, but I also want the record to reflect that there's there will be public outrage if we get close to that point.
I will tell you also, if you remember, during an NPDES permit application, there is at the end of that application and after EGLE review, there is a public review timeframe and public comment timeframe. And already if you remember, the people in that water and the permits people came down, and they did commit and promise that there'll be a public meeting, public hearing. So, I mean, before any discharge goes into First Sister Lake, that permit has to be issued. And then Gelman, if it's issued, then Gelman has to drill the well and then hook up the portable system and start that process. So, the permit process is the first part, and there will be a chance for the public to make comment and again, have a time to make comment and identify to the, of the concern of discharging into First Sister Lake.
Oh, okay, thanks. I appreciate those comments, and I know that you're in the middle here, but there are some very disappointed community members, so we'll continue to hear from them. Thanks.
James, I see your hand up.
Thanks, Dan. I want to follow up to what Kathy said a moment ago. And that is, I realize that there is a a public comment period. But at the end of the day, if this is under the court order, I've seen many public hearings, and even a few under EGLE. But in the end, isn't it you don't have any choice in the matter that you're going to issue the permit? Maybe Gelman may follow through or not with it, but in the end, aren't you going to issue the permit? So, I mean, will EGLE actually work against a court order? Is that possibility?
Well, the court order
exists?
only, the court order again, this is me interpreting. The court order identifies the process to install and that Park Lake well and discharge into First Sister Lake. The court order identifies that process, and that process, the NPDES application for discharge into First Sister Lake, is the first part of that process. Well, EGLE, that's going to go through what the normal NPDES permit review process from the Water Resources Division. So the court isn't ordering that, the EGLE to give that, to approve that permit. It's, all the court order is doing is identifying the process. So we will go, our sister division, the Water Resources Division, will go through their normal NPDES review process, whatever that is. Again, that's outside my program, whatever that is. But I did want to make clear that the public will have a chance to comment on if it's an approval or, I'm sure you're not going to comment if it's a denied, but whatever that process is, you will have a chance to comment on it.
Let me verify that then. So then the process here. So EGLE will issue a approval or denial, and then there will be the public comment period. Is that it?
No.
Well, I believe at the end of the process, again, I'm speaking from outside of my program, so I may not be voicing it exactly correct, but as I understand it, what I'm expecting is that during this process, near the end of that process, there'll be a chance for public to make comment on the permit, and then also have with a request. And I think they've already said we understand that, and we'll schedule a public hearing about it. So you'll even have a in person or whatever it is at that time, hearing to go review the permit and the what the public has concerns about. So
let me verify though. But at the end of the day, does EGLE have any latitude to deny the permit?
Well, the Water Resources Division, if the permit is, if through their evaluation, it can be denied. I mean, permits aren't automatic. So
just by being under a court order.
Right. Yeah, it's just not a requirement. The court order isn't ordering that the permit be issued. It's the process, and if the process comes up that it warrants a denial, then that's the process. I don't know the criteria that are utilized. Again, it's outside my program, but that's what will occur once that application is submitted by Gelman to the appropriate division.
All right. Thanks, Dan. I appreciate this.
Go ahead, Beth.
Since last month, the Sister Lakes Association Neighborhood Board, we're a very active neighborhood of about 350 homes. We passed a resolution opposing any NPDES or wetlands permit into the lake. So we're ready. We're prepared.
Yep. And I have made a commitment. I guess there was some critique that you said you'd do it last month, but I made a commitment to identify when the permit is submitted to this group. You'll know from me that the permit has been submitted. And again, it's the Water Resources, another division that it will handle that review. And they have a process, I'm sure, and, for that. And I can give the guidance, or at least, identify under that program where you can go get what is the actual permitting process. I'll get some links to what is available on the web under that program and that division.
Okay.
Glenn, you had your hand up?
Yes, I can confirm that the state will issue what's called a fact sheet along with a public notice and a draft permit. And the public will have the opportunity to review that draft permit. It's important to review that permit in the context of Part 31 because that's how the state reviews it, and to refer to all the various water quality regulations and treatment-based requirements in Part 31 in the public comments.
Thank you. So, Dan,
I have a couple other items related to.
I thought you said you did. Go ahead.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, under B, again, we've been talking about the NPDES permit. As far as the permit, the renewal of the current permit used for the outfall, the discharge of the treated groundwater on the unnamed tributary, I don't have any new information. That still has not been finalized. As far as the, and we talked about tonight about the submittal for the application, Gelman has not done that for the First Sister Lake discharge. So they're anticipating doing that by the end of May. I will confirm that during our, next CARD meeting if that occurs. And then that'll start the review of that permit. So that's where we are as far as the updates on the NPDES Honey Creek renewal and the First Sister Lake. And then I had just a couple more things just under what's new. Just as Kristen gave you, if they weren't available, I was going to give an update. The residential well sampling activities for 2022 was started, as Kristen identified and gave you the details there. I just wanted to confirm that the EGLE Gelman database has been updated with a 2021 Scioto Township residential well sampling locations and results. So those are in the database that is available that can be downloaded off the Access database that be downloaded off our webpage. These results will also be used this year as we update the interactive GIS web map with 2021 data. So that's Scioto Township data is in there and available for people to look at and will be utilized for any updates we do on the web map. I had sent out a kind of a notice more toward to CARD here, more toward the CARD management. I don't know if it went out, Beth, you sent that out, but just a little update. There was some dewatering that was done for a water line repair by the city in the West Park area, just along the water line was needed to be repaired on Chapin Street. And they had to dewater up basically to the west a little bit in the West Park there, just to be able to put in a hydrant to shut the water off to make the repairs. That was completed. We asked them, or it was recommended to them by both the county and EGLE to sample dioxane, since we are in the potential. We had that 49 or 39 to 49 concentration in the Allen Creek drain there. We asked them to sample and analyze for 1,4-dioxane. They did that during their dewatering activities, and they did at the first day of dewatering, or that first day, they did get a positive result at 0.22 micrograms per liter. So they got a detection when they first started dewatering. But then all the remaining samples collected during the dewatering activities, I believe they collected it daily. All the remaining six additional samples were non-detect, and the detection level, or the method detection reporting level, was 0.12 micrograms per liter. So they did not get any other detections during the dewatering activities. So I just wanted to bring that, since I had made the CARD group aware of that work by the city. Just one other note,
Can I
related.
interrupt just for a second, Dan?
Sure.
Just to make sure everybody knows where this was. This is down here, I think. I think everybody should be seeing the Google Earth mashup. I'm circling the area. Oh, that's Ashley. This is Chapin here, right? It's in this area where they're dewatering.
Yeah, they were just into the West Park off of Chapin, just in there,
Just in
right
there.
where, right where the
Playground.
So it's
Playground.
near where Allen Creek was showing up to 28 parts per billion in 2016 and 2001.
Right.
And in upgrading it there, whether we, it had other.
Yeah, the dewatering occurred between the West Park Pond and Chapin Street there.
Okay. So
They had to,
that indicates that the water around around the drain there does not have high levels of dioxide at this point.
Well, I think you have to say that there's potentially contamination from all the water diluting out any contamination with the leakage from the pipe. So I think we're
not seeing the 49 that was up gradient there.
Yeah, but that's
the 49 was in the Allen Creek drain. What we were more concerned about is, okay, this is an opportunity to determine whether there's the plume, the groundwater, what's in the groundwater is down that far and at what concentration.
I think it's confounded by all the flow of water through there, probably diluted out, is my guess. But it's just, it's good that they did the test, that, you had an opportunity. Glad they did it. Thanks for working on it.
Well, again, we just so people are aware, because in the prohibition zone, EGLE is, Washtenaw County issues permits for any wells, but makes EGLE aware of any wells that are being requested in the prohibition zone. Now, the only ones that are allowed are for dewatering or heat pumps. And so we review those and take a look and monitoring wells, to make sure we don't have a concern. And so they let us know up front, and we identified what we'd like to see, including that sampling, and they did that. So.
Well, in the past, those tests were done during very dry conditions, thanks to your effort, Dan Hamel. So I think, we need to keep doing these tests. I wish we'd do more often, but I'm pretty sure we can say there's groundwater contamination, because upstream was non-detect. At West Park, it was as high as 49 part per billion. There's contamination going on in between there. And I think, the West Park is much lower area than upstream, where previous tests were done and for non-detect. Thanks.
I just have two more quick little items. For those of you that don't know, there's the EGLE webpage. It has a new format. There's a new EGLE webpage. The EGLE webpage is different when you landing page. We made some improvements, and so we will, that if people want to go in there and look, we've made it the documents that are posted that we've been talking about. All the documents are now are more easily accessed and searched for. So so it will improve if people want to search for specific documents that we have had, we have on our webpage. It'll make it a little easier. So it's just a new format. In fact, all web pages in the state have gone to a new format, this kind of general format. So just wanted to make people aware of that. And then the final, as I said before, we are working to post the court documents that CARD has requested, that we talked about last month and that had requested. And so it's not an easy task. We haven't been posting them each individual time, and there's, a handful of documents. So we're compiling those, making sure the title identifies what it is exactly. And this, just realize when to post something under state law or under the state, we have to make it ADA compliant. So there's a process. You just can't take a PDF of it and jam it onto the web page or post it. There's some work in between for our IT people. And this is not the only job that the particular person does. the IT person. And so sometimes it's not as quick as people would like to see, but we are going to have those legal documents posted in the near future.
And I appreciate that. Thanks so
One
much.
last thing I have
Absolutely.
is Roger and the Jackson District will be meeting on Monday to talk about the Rockworks model and the GIS web map. We're going to talk through some of his suggested changes, or something where he's noticed some inconsistencies or some basically notes, suggestions, enhancements. We're going to be talking with him on Monday.
And speaking of Roger, it's time for Roger to give us his update.
Thanks, Dan. You've taken over part of my time and answered a lot of the stuff that I was going to be talking about. So let me jump to my agenda. Share, new share. Let's see. Bear with me. I have to change two screens when I do this. So I'll just jump into the dewatering thing that Dan's already talked about. The question, we already seen that there's no major dioxane coming in the sampling from that Chapin site, but what I'd like to know from everyone who's, I forgot to share what everybody's on the screen here, what other dewatering or large scale water withdrawals over the years could have affected plume movement? And I mentioned one earlier that relates to Scioto Township, but in the city, there may be some others. And there was a comment made years ago, decades ago, about dewatering that was done around Jackson Road that might have pulled the western plume farther than it would have gone by itself. So I'd just like all of the staff people and policy people to keep that in the back of their mind, that dewatering can move plumes. Now let me jump back to the first screen here where I have my notes.
Roger, can I just ask a question?
Sure.
This dewatering process, should this be a consideration maybe on the checklist when considering greater density, for example, out at the shopping center on North Maple Road, north of Jackson Road? It's now owned by Trimark, and it's ideal for mixed use, greater density. But in any development that's done, we would need to ensure that in the dewatering process, dioxane was regularly tested.
Oh yeah, anywhere where there's dewatering, anywhere near known dioxane contamination.
Okay, so is that something we need to have city staff write up as a procedure, or do you think that's automatically going to happen?
I don't think it's going to be automatically happen, because it hasn't automatically happened at times in the past.
Okay, I'll raise that with staff. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, we're about 2/3 water. We really need to act accordingly. We don't want dioxin in our bodies.
So did I understand correctly that the county water commissioner actually has to issue a permit for projects that require dewatering? And so we could probably go through him to find out what projects have been done or may be coming forward.
And we'd need staff to be able to tally all that from the different agencies, whoever's involved. All right.
Alrighty. What else is on your agenda, Roger?
Well, the EGLE website has changed, and as you noticed, there's some concerns about it. And I've started this feedback page that anybody can add to and comment, add their own comments about the EGLE website, the new website. And here are the ones that I have. One of the major ones that I kind of highlighted as Dan was talking about it was that the search function there is basically useless because it only searches in the names of the if I can get to it from here. No, I have to reshare. You can only get to it from the names of the documents that are listed, and it only lists up to 100 per page. So if you want to search all documents, I think you have to search through like 12 pages of 100 each. It's not searching the contents of the documents, it's just searching the title of the documents. So in today's modern search, that's really last century. You should be able to search within the documents and find keywords, especially in later years, since all those are PDF files. And any recent PDF should be text PDF, not an image PDF. Even the image PDFs can be OCR'd and searched, and I do that on a massive basis using something called Google Pinpoint. But that should be part of what it's in the website is. You should be able to search back through any documents relating to the Gelman site. I know they're not all digitized yet, but that somebody needs to do that. So that's the feedback, and people can. I'll make sure this is in what we publish, so that other people can go to the website and add their own comments to this. Let's see, where was I here? My agenda is in this. You know, I had all this all queued up, ready to go. And as we went through the meeting, I kind of added some things to it. So I might have just closed it accidentally here.
So while you look for that, I want to note that Kathy had mentioned that a different city attorney is working on the Gelman issues. His name is Tim Wilhelm, and he's being brought up to speed by the attorney who retired, Abigail Elias. So that will be a learning process for him to sort through all that with Abigail. We have a new head city attorney who is probably equally unaware of all of this as well. So there'll be a learning curve for these people, and it's important that our policymakers help them along.
Here we go. And reshare this just to make sure that it's showing up right. All right, you should be seeing my heading for chair notes.
We do.
Okay. And here's what else I wanted to cover. My annual Google Earth mashups are fairly complete. Some core parts, the main core parts are posted to srsw.org, and next I'm going to work on the Tableau public visualizations that come from those. Now, as Dan mentioned, EGLE has added the Scioto Township homeowner sampling wells to the EGLE database, and I really congratulate EGLE and Scioto for getting that done. That's just the data for 2021. Unfortunately, that data didn't make it into the database to be included yet in those Google Earth mashups I just mentioned. And Dan also mentioned the well logs he shared for 142 through 146. I have a problem with MW 146 because it only shows one shallow screen and not the nested SI and D, shallow, intermediate, and deep, like the other wells in 142 through 145. And that's despite MW 146 having two separate layers with dioxane in the deeper layers. So if we scroll down to the deeper layers, so there's where the well stops around 60 to 70 something feet down. But if you scroll down, you can see that there's sampling that was done in 2, 2, and 2, and 3 parts per billion in the deeper sand layers. You know, the boring did go down to bedrock and it found dioxane, and that's good. That's what we wanted. We wanted the sampling down to dioxane. Well, that was with the implication that if you find dioxane, you should screen for it there and continue to sample to know what's going to happen with that dioxane.
No,
Instead,
I can tell you why that.
But now,
No, it
I'd
was
like
not.
to hear your explanation now of why those layers were ignored, because they're the last layers for another great distance before we have real monitoring wells down gradient before homeowner wells.
Yeah, I can tell you why only one well was put in there, because in the response activity order, the proposed fourth amended CJ, that location had only a shallow well identified required. So that's why only a shallow well was identified.
Right, then
there.
I'll extend it beyond. So you didn't even know what the sampling was going to show there, and somebody already decided, oh, we're just going to have a shallow well there. But now
Yes,
that's
what was negotiated between all parties during.
Now that the sampling shows 2 and 3 parts per billion, much deeper. Do you think that was a wise decision for the court to have just one shallow sampling well there?
Well, Roger, right now we're implementing the response activity order. Knowing what we know now, we will have to evaluate what the information is and whether that area is covered by additional wells, which was what was the discussion during those negotiations. Just remember, it wasn't just Gelman, it wasn't just EGLE, it was it was Gelman, EGLE, and the interveners. It was a compromise, and this what is identified in the CJ order, the actual CJ. This location has a shallow well only. So that was what Gelman did in implementing the response activity order.
Right.
So that's the reason.
There's something funny going on there. That I mean, normally when you find 2 or 3 parts per billion in a new, deeper layer, something would have changed at that point. Somebody would have run to the court and said, hey, we need 2 more wells in that area, maybe more than 2. And that didn't happen. I just want people to know
that was the wisdom of the judge's idea that we should have quarterly meetings to tinker with the order that he issued, that as long as there is an appeal pending, no changes can be made. It doesn't matter how much we implore EGLE to do the common sense thing here. Until the courts have resolved the appeals, we're not going to get modifications of the order that's been entered. We will be lucky if the court upholds that order. And so to implore Dan to do things that are not inside the parameters of that order, first is impossible for him because
I'm not yelling at Dan. I'm yelling at anyone else who sees this video.
Yep, but
who had some action on. They could have intervened at that point and said, hey, well, at least maybe we ought to tell the Court of Appeals that this is what's happening. And if the Court of Appeals doesn't know about this, they're going to allow that 2 and 3 parts per billion to continue without having to be able to modify the court order.
They are going to decide the appeal on the basis of the facts that were known at the time that the order was entered.
I understand what you're saying. You can't intervene anymore.
We're running long here, and so let's not debate the wisdom of the order that was entered.
Yeah, so that's a major thing that happened. We didn't find out about it right away. We couldn't comment it right away, so we can only comment it now, and it's not going to make any difference. As Dan mentioned, I'll be meeting with the EGLE's Rockworks team next Monday and discuss the data issues and the well naming confusion that they had to deal with, that I have to deal with every year. And some of the issues would be best handled in a CART technical group that we don't have anymore. So besides the data errors, I want to make sure that there's a way to update the Gelman database, because the Rockworks database has some data that's better than the current EGLE database. And somehow those two have to get merged with the best data. Now, I will point out there's one well in particular in the Rockworks model that's off by a half a mile. And I don't know, that's one of the things I'm going to ask Rockworks is how are they updating that kind of data in the Rockworks model, and how is that going to translate back to the EGLE database? Because of that half mile error, that well, 495 North Wagner, is depicted as being the deepest screened well anywhere on the well site, down around 640 feet elevation, which is not true. It's just not accurate. So I put a note into that effect on the data, but the fact that that happened shows why we need other eyes on the data to correct data errors before some outside consultant makes a model that could be based on erroneous data. We have to have good data in order to know where the dioxin is. We had a good Earth Day event, as Vince pointed out. I want to wrap up by saying we may be able to return to hybrid or in-person CART events. The plan was to do that at SIO because of what's going on in SIO. I'm not sure that's going to happen anytime soon. And even if it did, it would still have a Zoom component for it to save everybody travel time. And we'll still record the meetings.
If I could interrupt you.
Sure.
We need to discuss this. Maybe we should talk privately, because I haven't reserved the large meeting hall room for the CART meetings for this year.
Well, how many months ahead do you have to have it?
I usually reserve a year in advance.
No, but how many months before? So you can look and see how many.
I can check. Let's talk privately.
How many of the first Tuesdays are already taken and make a decision?
I don't know.
So let's plan on doing purely Zoom for the June meeting. And at that point in time, you two will have spoken on this subject, and we'll have an update on that. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's all
I
have.
Thank you, Jack.
Thanks, everybody. And I'm going to stay on and keep the meeting going for Debbie's crew to see how the transition is going to go there, and anybody else that wants to hang around and ask questions.
Okay. So let's remember that the next meeting, the June meeting, is a quarterly meeting, and then it'll be at 10 a.m. on June 7th. And hopefully we'll have some participation from the Attorney General and from the folks who oversee the discharge permits and all of the other things that didn't happen at this meeting.
I was going to ask if we could invite Water Resources to the quarterly ones, Dan.
I will do that.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
And the other thing on that is, Dan, you saw me jumping back and forth trying to keep up with your update. What I'm doing in my updates is I'm creating this document here, well, the document I was showing earlier, and I'll have links into it to be able to show the maps and the other documents that I'm referring to. If anybody else presents, and Dan, it'd be nice if we had some way to show the visualizations ahead of time so that they could be queued up, kind of like a PowerPoint format or something. That's basically what I've tried to do, and I just don't have time to get through it all. But I think that would help everybody visualize what's going on better, rather than just listening to words and trying to imagine maps and things like that. So and we can do that remotely is just and even better than we can in person, because we can, everybody sees big images, not just little tiny images. So that's my comments on that.
Okay, I'm not going to stick around for the extra portion of the meeting.
Thanks, Jack.
I will express I think our collective idea that we're going to miss Katie when she finally stops coming to these meetings, if she ever does. But we welcome Joel, and I hope you have a productive discussion after the meeting here.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming, James. You going to stick around?
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you inviting me to this meeting. If you'd like me to stick around, I can.
For a couple of minutes. I think it's important for some people to meet you.
Okay.
James came to the Earth Day event, and we talked for a bit.
Roger, you gonna stop sharing your screen?
Yes, thank you. Sure, there we go. All right.
All right, and are we recording this part too?
Yeah, I'm gonna stop recording. Thanks for reminding me. Maybe we should keep you on as the tech person to do the Zoom part. Huh?